The sky of the cold planet was filled with silver clouds and silent storms. A small craft fell through the clouds and landed roughly on the frozen ground, throwing up dust and ice. The door opened slowly and a tall alien woman stepped out, holding a small child close to her chest. Her name was Lysera, once known as Princess of the Selen Empire. Her daughter Alira was only 5 years old, small and trembling, her golden eyes wide with fear. The world around them was empty, lifeless, and cold. There were no lights, no buildings, and no warmth. The only sound was the wind blowing across the wasteland. Lysera looked back at the sky where her mother's royal ship had disappeared minutes ago. Her heart hurt. The Empress had not even looked at her when she ordered the exile. One command and everything Lysera knew. Her palace, her friends, her future was gone. The Empress had called her a traitor for refusing to lead a cruel mission against human colonies. Lysera had chosen mercy, and for that she had been cast away. Now she stood alone on a forgotten planet with no power, no guards, and no hope. The wind bit through her clothes. She pulled her daughter's cloak tighter. "It's all right, Alira," she whispered softly, though her voice shook. "We'll find shelter soon." But she didn't know where to go. The planet was marked as uninhabited. Only a few scattered ruins appeared on her map, probably from old exploration posts. She took a deep breath and began walking north, following the dim signal of a possible energy source. Every step felt heavy. Her feet sank into the thin snow. The child grew tired quickly, so Lysera carried her in her arms, whispering old lullabies from the Selen homeworld. Hours passed. The sky darkened to deep purple. Lysera finally spotted a small ridge with a cave. It wasn't much, but it would protect them from the wind. She entered and placed Alira down gently. The child coughed a little and asked, "Mama, why did Grandma send us away?" The question made Lysera's heart break. She didn't know how to explain war, politics, or betrayal to a small child, so she said simply, "Because I chose to be kind when she wanted me to be cruel." Alira tilted her head, confused, but soon curled up and closed her eyes, falling asleep in her mother's arms. Lysera stared at the frozen cave walls. Her royal life had never prepared her for this kind of hardship. She had never felt hunger or cold before. She had never known what it meant to fight for survival. Now every breath of cold air reminded her of her mistakes, her choices, and her lost home. But when she looked at her sleeping daughter, something inside her grew strong again. She could not afford to give up. For her child, she would learn to survive. She checked her wrist device. The signal beacon was too weak to send messages. She was officially alone. Her ship had no fuel left, and the supplies would last only a few days. She gathered small rocks and used her energy tool to heat them, creating a weak glow that gave a little warmth. It wasn't much, but Alira smiled in her sleep, feeling safer. Lysera sat quietly beside her and whispered a silent promise to the stars. "I will protect her. Whatever happens, I will keep her safe." Outside, the wind howled like distant voices. Somewhere beyond the mountains, faint blue lights flickered, maybe from an old human outpost. Lysera had heard stories about humans during her life in the palace. They were considered primitive and emotional, but also brave and loyal. Her mother used to say that humans were dangerous because they cared too much. Lysera didn't believe that anymore. She remembered the faces of the human prisoners she had refused to harm. They had looked at her with fear, not hatred. Some had even whispered thinking had changed, yet one truth remained. Kindness still mattered even here. The night grew colder. Lysera closed her eyes for a moment, but her mind stayed awake. She thought about the human colonies she had been ordered to destroy. She remembered her defiance and her mother's angry face. "You will regret this," the Empress had said. Maybe she was right, but Lysera didn't regret saving lives. She regretted only that her daughter had to suffer because of her. Alira stirred in her sleep and whispered, "Mama, don't cry." Lysera smiled softly. Even in exile, her daughter still gave her strength. When dawn finally came, the first rays of sunlight broke through the cave entrance. The planet's frozen surface sparkled faintly like glass. Lysera stepped outside, holding Alira's hand. The cold air hurt her lungs, but she didn't stop. In the far distance, a small plume of smoke rose into the sky. Her eyes widened. That wasn't natural, it meant someone was alive nearby. She didn't know if it was friend or foe, but it was hope. She turned to her daughter. "We walk toward the smoke," she said. "There may be someone who can help us." And so, with her daughter by her side, The exiled princess began her journey across the endless white plain, toward the unknown, toward the human who would one day change their lives forever. The snowstorm had slowed when the human engineer, Nathan Hale, stepped out of his small metal shelter. He lived alone on this forgotten planet, maintaining communication towers that few ships even used anymore. His beard had grown rough and his jacket was patched with old repairs. He liked silence, but lately even the silence felt too heavy. The wind carried strange sounds, soft echoes that didn't belong to any machine. Nathan tightened his gloves and scanned the horizon with his old field scope. Then he saw something that made him pause. Two shapes were moving far away, struggling against the snow. One was tall, the other much smaller. He frowned. There shouldn't be anyone else on this side of the world. The last Union team had left months ago. He checked his scanner, but the readings were faint and strange. Alien energy signatures. His heart jumped. For years, humans had known about the Selen Empire, but direct contact was rare and dangerous. The last message he had received from the Union mentioned something about political tension and an exiled royal. Nathan lowered the scope slowly, unsure what to do. He wasn't trained to deal with aliens, but he couldn't just ignore two people wandering through a storm. He packed emergency supplies and started his hoverbike. The machine hummed as it glided over the icy ground. It took him half an hour to reach the figures. When he got close, his eyes widened. The taller one was clearly alien, silver blue skin, fine ridged patterns near her temples, and glowing eyes that reflected the light. The smaller one, a child, clung to her cloak. Both looked weak, almost frozen. Nathan stopped the bike and raised his hand slowly, showing he wasn't a threat. "Hey, can you hear me?" he shouted over the wind. The alien woman turned sharply, shielding the child behind her. Her face was filled with both fear and pride. She said something in a language his translator couldn't catch. He took a slow step forward. "I'm human," he said calmly. "You're not safe out here. Come with me. There's shelter." She hesitated, eyes narrowing. Nathan noticed how her hands trembled as she tried to hold a small device, probably a weak energy weapon. But it wasn't charged. The child peeked from behind her mother's arm and whispered something softly. The woman lowered her weapon slightly, exhaustion showing on her face. Nathan pointed toward his vehicle and said, "You'll freeze out here. I can help." Finally, she nodded once, just a small movement. Nathan helped them onto the hoverbike. The child sat between them, holding tightly onto her mother's arm. They rode through the wind until Nathan's metal shelter came into view, half buried in snow. He guided them inside quickly and sealed the door. The warmth inside made the child sigh in relief. Nathan placed 2 metal cups on the table and poured warm nutrient soup. "Drink," he said. The woman stared suspiciously but took a sip. Her eyes softened slightly. The child drank faster, smiling shyly. Nathan knelt beside her and said gently, "You're safe now." The little one nodded, though she didn't understand every word. He tried to talk, but the woman said nothing. She sat near the heater, holding her daughter close, eyes still sharp. Nathan respected the silence. He repaired a broken vent nearby, pretending not to watch her. After a while, she spoke quietly through her weak translator. "Why help us?" The question carried both confusion and pride. Nathan shrugged. "Because you needed help." Her brows furrowed as if the answer made no sense. To her kind, mercy between species was rare. "Human and Selen, not friends," she said slowly. "Doesn't matter," Nathan replied. "Out here it's just life and death. Titles don't mean much when the cold comes." She looked at him for a long moment, searching for a trick in his words. But she saw only calm honesty. Finally, she said softly, "My name." "Lizera, this..." "Alira." Nathan nodded. "I'm Nathan." The child smiled shyly and said, "Thank you, Nathan." Her voice was soft but clear. Something warm flickered inside Nathan's chest. It had been years since anyone had said his name kindly. He gave them dry blankets and fixed a small heater near the if, trying to understand human kindness. The warmth of the heater spread through the small shelter. Alira had already fallen asleep, her small hand clutching a metal gear from Nathan's desk like it was a toy. Lizera watched her daughter sleep and then looked at Nathan again. "You are strange for human," she said quietly. Nathan chuckled. "I get that a lot." For the first time, she smiled faintly. It was small and uncertain but real. Nathan didn't know why it mattered so much to see that smile. Maybe because it had been a long time since anyone had smiled in this lonely world. He dimmed the lights and said, "You can rest. You're safe here, Tony." Nathan nodded, understanding. "That's fair. You don't have to trust me today. Just eat something." He placed 2 small plates on the table, one with bread and one with warmed fruit from the rations. Lysera looked at the food like it was something strange. She took a small piece and gave it to her daughter first. Alira woke and ate slowly, then looked up at Nathan and said softly, "It's good." Nathan smiled at her bright eyes. For a moment it didn't matter that she was alien. She was just a child enjoying breakfast. After they ate, Nathan started fixing a broken circuit board near the wall. Sparks flickered as he worked. Lysera watched carefully, curious. "You repair machines?" she asked. "Mostly," Nathan replied. "That's my job. I keep this station alive so ships can still talk to each other out here." Lysera tilted her head. "You live alone?" "Yeah," he said with a small laugh. "Humans aren't great company sometimes, but machines never argue." She didn't laugh, but her expression softened a little. She admired how his hands moved confidently. On her homeworld, she had been trained in diplomacy and command, not in survival or repairs. Watching him fix things felt strangely peaceful. Later, Nathan noticed her struggling with the small energy cell from her ship. He walked over and said, "Mind if I help?" She hesitated. "You know Selen tech?" "Not much," he admitted, "but I know power systems." "Let me try." She handed it over carefully, watching every move. Nathan connected a small wire, adjusted a few settings, and smiled. "There, it's working again." The cell blinked with soft blue light. Lysera's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "You fixed it," she said. "Sometimes broken things just need patience," he said quietly. For a second, she didn't know if he was talking about machines or people. The thought stayed in her mind long after. That evening, Alira wandered around the small shelter, touching buttons and blinking lights. Nathan gently guided her hand away from the hot panel. "Careful, kiddo. That one bites." The girl laughed, repeating, "Bites!" and then giggled more when Nathan smiled. Lysera watched them, her face unreadable. For the first time, her daughter was laughing again. It had been so long since she had heard that sound. When the lights dimmed for night, Nathan offered them clean bedding. "You both can sleep here." "I'll take the chair," Lysera frowned. "You give your bed to strangers?" He shrugged. "You need it more. I've slept in worse places." Her lips parted, but she said nothing. She was not used to such kindness. In her world, kindness was often a sign of weakness. But this human showed it without expecting anything. It confused her. It also made her heart ache in a way she couldn't explain. Later, as the wind whispered outside, Nathan sat quietly, writing small notes in his logbook. Lysera spoke suddenly from her corner. "Why are you here, human?" He looked up. "Maintenance duty. I fix broken systems. Not the most exciting life." She stared at the small heater flame. "You could have stayed with your people. Why stay alone on a cold world?" Nathan smiled faintly. "Sometimes people don't belong where they're born. Sometimes they just want peace." Lysera looked at him, understanding the feeling too well. She had lost everything, her title, her home, her family. Maybe they weren't so different after all. The next morning, Nathan gave her a small device. "It's a translator chip. Old model, but it might help you understand me better." She touched the small metal disc carefully. "You would give this to me?" "Sure," he said. "Communication's important. We can't work together if we keep guessing." She placed it near her ear and activated it. The sound adjusted, and suddenly Nathan's words became clear, smooth, and understandable. Her eyes widened slightly. "Now I can hear you properly," she said, almost in wonder. "Good," Nathan smiled. "Makes things easier." From that day, small changes began. Lysera started helping him with repairs, learning how to handle tools. Nathan taught her simple things: how to solder wires, how to clean filters, how to identify energy readings. She was a fast learner. In return, she told him about her people's technology, their culture, and their music. She even hummed a soft Kellen lullaby one night, and Alira fell asleep smiling. Nathan listened quietly, feeling peace for the first time in years. The loneliness that once filled the shelter began to fade. Lysera noticed it too. She no longer looked at him as just a human. She started seeing him as something else. Someone who didn't judge, someone who gave without asking. Still, she hid her past. She couldn't tell him who she really was. Not yet. but trust was growing quietly and naturally, like light seeping through cracks in old walls. That night, before sleeping, Nathan fixed a small light over their corner. "So the kid won't be scared," he said softly. Lysera looked at the glowing bulb and whispered, "Thank you." He smiled, turning off the other lights. "Get some rest, princess," he said jokingly, not knowing the truth behind the word. Lysera froze, her heart skipping. For a moment she thought he knew, but his tone was light, casual. She relaxed, though her eyes glistened in the dim glow. She looked at Nathan one last time before closing her eyes. For the first time since exile, she felt safe, not because of walls or warmth, but because of a human who treated her not as an alien, not as a royal, but as someone who still deserved kindness. The storm outside had ended, leaving the land quiet and calm. Nathan was repairing a damaged power relay while Lysera watched him from the other side of the room. Days had passed since their first meeting, and the air inside the small shelter no longer felt so cold. Alira played near the heater with a small piece of metal Nathan had given her, pretending it was a toy spaceship. The sound of her laughter made the shelter feel alive again. Nathan smiled every time he heard it. Lysera had started helping him more. She cleaned filters, sorted cables, and even managed to fix a small sensor by herself. Nathan was impressed. "You learn fast," he said one morning. She replied softly, "Where I come from, they say knowledge is survival." Nathan nodded, wiping his hands. That's true everywhere, but something in her tone made him curious. He wanted to ask about her past, about who she really was, but he didn't want to push her. She always avoided questions about her home or her people. It was like she carried a wall around her heart. That evening, as Nathan worked on a damaged communication pad, he accidentally activated a stored message. It wasn't his data. It was something from her ship's memory crystal. A voice came through the small speaker, sharp and commanding. "Princess Lysera of the Kellan Empire, you are hereby stripped of all royal duties. For disobedience and treason, you are sentenced to exile on planet E47. The voice echoed through the room. Nathan froze. Lysera dropped the tool she was holding. Her eyes widened, then filled with quiet pain. She rushed to the table and grabbed the device, switching it off. For a long moment, silence filled the shelter. Nathan spoke carefully. "Princess?" Lysera didn't meet his eyes. She sat down slowly, her hands trembling. "Now you know," she whispered. Nathan hesitated. He didn't know whether to bow, to apologize, or to comfort her. "You don't have to explain," he said gently, but she shook her head. "No, you should understand. My mother is the Empress. I was her heir. I was supposed to continue her rule, but she ordered me to do something I could not do." Her voice was quiet, heavy with regret. She wanted me to lead a campaign against human colonies. She called it cleansing. Nathan's stomach tightened. He had heard stories of that war. Thousands of humans had died. He looked at Lysera, unsure how to feel. She continued, her voice breaking slightly. "When the order came, I refused. I told her it was wrong. She said mercy is weakness, that I was shaming our bloodline. I tried to reason with her, but she would not listen. So she called me a traitor and sent me away. My guards were taken. My ship was stripped. Only my daughter remained with me. I thought exile would be better than killing innocent lives." Nathan stood there silent. He had never imagined that an alien princess would defy her own empire for humans. "You risked everything," he said softly. Lysera looked up, her eyes shining with tears she was trying to hide. "Do you hate me now?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "No, you did the right thing. You chose compassion. That's not something to hate." She blinked in surprise. "Even though I am one of those who once called your kind lesser beings." Nathan sighed and sat across from her. "My people have made mistakes too. I've seen humans destroy things just because they didn't understand them. What matters isn't where you come from, it's what you decide to stand for." Lysera looked at him for a long time. No one had ever spoken to her that way, not even her advisors, not even her guards. Most people feared her title or envied her power. But this human spoke to her like she was simply a person. The warmth of his words reached places in her heart she thought were frozen forever. After a moment, she said quietly, "You speak with peace in your heart. My people would call that foolish." He smiled a little. "Then I guess I'm a fool." That made her laugh softly, a sound so delicate it almost broke the silence in the room. Alira looked up and giggled too, not knowing why her mother was laughing but happy to join in. Nathan leaned back and said, For what it's worth, your secret's safe with me. Lysera looked at him with disbelief. You would not tell anyone? Who would I tell? He asked lightly. The radio barely reaches orbit. Besides, I don't turn in people for being brave. Her eyes softened again. You are strange, Nathan Hale. I've been told that before, he said with a grin. The mood grew calmer. Lysera finally relaxed, sitting quietly while Alira played near her feet. She thought about how different this human was. He didn't see her as an exile or an alien, just as someone worth saving. Later that night, Lysera sat outside the shelter for a while, staring at the stars. Nathan joined her, wrapping his coat tighter. The sky shimmered with blue light from distant suns. Back home, Lysera said softly, I used to watch the stars from a palace balcony. They looked close, but I never really felt them. Now, even though they seem far away, I can finally feel their warmth. Nathan smiled. Maybe that's because you're finally free to see them for yourself. She turned her head toward him. Freedom is strange. It feels heavy and light at the same time. He nodded. That's how you know it's real. They sat in silence after that, just two souls under a wide sky, sharing warmth neither of them expected to find. Before they went inside, Lysera looked at him once more. Thank you, Nathan. For listening, he smiled softly. Any time, Princess. She didn't correct him this time. She simply smiled back, the stars reflecting in her eyes. Deep inside, she knew this human was changing something within her, something she had forgotten existed. The morning was quiet. A pale sun rose above the icy hills and painted the sky with silver light. Nathan stepped outside to check the communication tower that stood near his shelter. The wind was light, but the air still bit through his gloves. He adjusted a few wires and checked his scanner. It showed a strange new signal, weak but sharp. He frowned and went inside quickly, closing the heavy door behind him. Lysera was feeding Alira with a bowl of warm broth. She looked peaceful, but Nathan's face made her freeze. What happened? She asked. He placed the scanner on the table. There's a ship in orbit, he said slowly. It's Selin. Lysera's heart stopped. The spoon fell from her hand. No, she whispered. They found us. Nathan nodded grimly. The signal is coded in Silan frequency. It's weak, but they're sweeping the area. Probably a scout ship looking for someone. Lysera stood, her body shaking slightly. She looked around the small shelter as if it could suddenly protect her from her past. They're looking for me, she said quietly. If they capture me, they'll take Alira away. They'll erase everything. Nathan took a deep breath. Then we won't let them find you. She turned toward him, her voice trembling. You don't understand, Nathan. The Selin Empire doesn't just search. They scan the planet, every energy source, every heartbeat. If they detect this shelter, it's over. Nathan stepped closer. I know a few tricks to hide signals. I used to work with stealth relays. We can mask our energy output. Her eyes widened. You can do that? He nodded. It's risky, but yes. We'll shut down everything except the heaters and life support. I'll reroute the energy signatures through the ice vents outside. It'll look like natural radiation. Lysera stared at him, amazed. You would do this for us? Nathan met her gaze. Of course. You didn't give up when your mother told you to destroy humans. I won't give up on you now. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her throat felt tight. You remember that? Every word, he said softly. You stood for what was right. That means something to me. Lysera turned away quickly, pretending to check Alira's blanket. Her eyes glistened. For the first time in her life, someone saw her not as a princess, not as a traitor, but as a person worth helping. Nathan began working fast. He connected wires, shut down systems, and dimmed the lights. The room became darker, the air colder. We'll need to stay quiet for a while, he said. No signals, no movement near the sensors. If they don't see us soon, they'll leave. Lysera nodded, holding her daughter close. What if they land near? Then I'll find another way, he replied firmly. Hours passed. The shelter grew silent except for the faint hum of the heater. Lysera sat with Alira in her lap, whispering a soft lullaby. The song was old and gentle, something from her homeworld. Nathan listened quietly while tightening a bolt near the power core. The melody sounded like a prayer carried by the wind. After a long time, the scanner beeped again. Nathan rushed to check it. The Selin ship had sent another pulse, stronger this time. His heart raced. They're getting close, he said. Lysera stood up, panic in her eyes. Can we run? Not yet, Nathan said. The storm outside is too rough. You'd freeze within an hour. We have to hide here until the signal fades. Lysera looked around, desperate. They will not stop. My mother never forgives. She will hunt me until the end of time. Nathan grabbed his toolkit. Then let's make her work for it. He opened a small panel and started adjusting the relay to send out fake heat signals several kilometers east. If they're tracking energy, this will lead them the wrong way, he said. Lysera watched him work with steady hands, focused eyes, and quiet strength. You risk your life for me and my child, she said softly. He didn't look up. You already risked yours for mine, long before we met. She frowned. What do you mean? Nathan stopped for a second. During the war, there was a rumor. A Sellan commander refused to bomb a human camp near the Epsilon Ridge. I was there. That refusal saved hundreds of lives, including mine. Lysera's lips parted in shock. You were one of them? He nodded slowly. I never knew who made that call. Now I do. Silence filled the room. Lysera looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. She whispered, Then fate brought us here for a reason. Nathan smiled faintly. Maybe fate's smarter than we think. A sudden loud beep cut the moment short. The scanner blinked red. They're scanning again, Nathan said quickly. Hold on. He activated the false beacon he had built. The device hummed and sent a strong energy pulse toward the east. Minutes later, the Sellan signal shifted direction. The ship had taken the bait. Lysera exhaled sharply, relief flooding her chest. She fell to her knees, holding Alira close. They're leaving? Nathan nodded, watching the scanner. Seems like it. They think you're in the eastern ridge. They'll waste time searching there. For a while, no one spoke. The storm outside softened again and calm returned. Nathan sat down, tired but smiling. Lysera looked at him and whispered, You saved us again. He shrugged. Just repaying a favor. She shook her head. You don't understand. You saved more than lives. You gave hope. He looked at her gently. Hope's the only thing worth saving sometimes. That night, after Alira had fallen asleep, Lysera sat near Nathan. The small heater glowed softly between them. Nathan, she said quietly, if they come again. If it becomes too dangerous, you can leave us. I will not let you die for me. He turned his head and met her eyes. I'm not leaving. You and your daughter are under my care now. Lysera felt her heart tighten. No one had ever said something like that to her before. For the first time in a long time, she believed she wasn't alone. One evening, he spread a few old maps and blueprints on the table. Lysera came closer, curious. What are those? She asked. Flight paths, Nathan said. I've been studying the old cargo routes. There's a crashed shuttle 20 kilometers east. If it's still intact, we might rebuild it. Lysera frowned. You think it can fly again? It's a long shot, he admitted, but it's better than waiting to be found. She stared at the maps, her eyes thoughtful. I can help, she said. Sellan ships use similar core systems. If we find the engine, I can repair the plasma conduit. Nathan looked at her, impressed. You really were trained for more than royal speeches. Her lips curved slightly. A princess must know how to rebuild what others destroy. They began to plan together. Nathan packed supplies, tools, food, and thermal blankets. The next morning, before sunrise, they left the shelter. Alira rode in Nathan's small snow vehicle, bundled in warm layers. Lysera sat beside him, scanning the horizon. The wind was sharp, but their hope was stronger. After hours of travel, they reached the wreck. It was half buried in ice and covered in frost. The shuttle's hull was cracked, but the frame still looked solid. Nathan climbed inside first, brushing off snow. Looks bad, he said, but I've seen worse. Lysera followed him, her eyes scanning the walls. This is Sellan design, but old. Probably a merchant transport. The core chamber should be under here. She knelt and pressed her hand on a frozen panel. The lock responded to her genetic code, opening with a faint hum. Nathan whistled softly. Remind me not to argue with royal tech, he said. Inside the chamber, the core engine rested quietly, half frozen. Lysera examined it carefully. It's damaged, but we can fix it if we find power cells strong enough. Nathan nodded. We can use parts from my communication tower. They worked together for hours. Nathan used his tools to cut through old metal, while Lysera rerouted energy cables. Alira sat near the door, humming to herself, drawing shapes in the frost. Every now and then she called, Head out, Mama, look! And Lysera smiled even when she was tired. By evening, the sky had turned a deep orange. Nathan connected the last wire. "Let's test it," he said. Lysira adjusted the control panel and pressed the ignition key. The engine coughed, then slowly began to glow. Warm light filled the cabin. "It's alive," Nathan said in disbelief. Lysira let out a soft breath. Not yet, but close. They still needed fuel, and the navigation systems were broken. But for the first time since Exile, there was a real chance of escape. That night, they stayed inside the shuttle to rest. The metal walls were cold, but Nathan built a small heater. Lysira sat across from him, watching the flickering light. "You've done so much," she said quietly. "I don't know how to repay you." Nathan smiled faintly. "You don't owe me anything. Maybe just a story for the road." She tilted her head. "A story?" "Yeah," he said. "What will you do if we make it out of here?" Lysira looked down, thinking. "I don't know," she admitted. "I can't return to my people. My mother would see me as a stain on her pride. Maybe I'll go somewhere quiet where Alira can grow without fear." Nathan nodded slowly. "That sounds good." She looked at him again. "And you? What will you do?" He chuckled softly. "Maybe fix things somewhere else." "That's what I do best," Lysira smiled faintly. "You fix more than machines, Nathan Hale." He didn't answer. He just smiled and stared at the warm glow of the engine. The next day, Nathan removed the power cells from his old tower and connected them to the shuttle. Lysira helped him calibrate the thrusters. When the systems came online, the small control screen flickered to life. "Navigation offline," it said. "Fuel reserves 20%, Nathan sighed. "It'll get us off the ground, maybe to the upper atmosphere." Lysira nodded. "It will be enough to find a signal and call for help." But as they prepared for launch, Alira pointed at the horizon. "Mama, look." They turned and saw lights far away, ships descending through the clouds. Lysira's heart sank. "Salen scouts," she whispered. "They're back," Nathan clenched his fists. "Then we leave now." He rushed to the cockpit and powered the engines. The ground shook as the old shuttle roared back to life. Dust and ice lifted into the air. Lysira held Alira close, whispering comfort. The engine sputtered but kept burning. "Come on, hold together," Nathan shouted. The shuttle lifted slightly, then steadied. Through the window, the world below began to shrink. But then alarms blared. One of the stabilizers was overheating. Nathan ran a quick override. "We're fine," he said, though his voice was shaking. Lysira looked out the window. The stars were so close now, bright and endless. Alira's small hands clutched her arm tightly. "Mama, are we flying?" "Yes," she said softly, tears in her eyes. "We are flying." Nathan managed to stabilize the craft just as the first Selen signals appeared on the radar. They were too far now to be caught immediately, but not safe yet. As the shuttle broke through the thin clouds, Lysira turned to Nathan. "You gave us back the stars," she said softly. He smiled, exhausted but proud. "They were always yours. You just needed a way to reach them." For a long moment they sat in silence, the stars stretching endlessly before them. The cold planet below was fading, and ahead of them lay the unknown tar map. "It's uninhabited but rich in minerals. We can land there and send a coded signal." Nathan smiled faintly. "That might work. If we're lucky, someone friendly will hear it." Lysira turned toward him. "You've given us more than luck, Nathan. You've given us a future." He shook his head. "No, you gave yourself that future when you refused to obey cruelty." Her gaze softened. "Perhaps both are true." As they approached the moon, the shuttle trembled slightly. The descent was rough, the old hull creaking under pressure. Nathan steadied the controls. "Hold on tight," he warned. Lysira wrapped her arms around Alira and braced herself. The shuttle broke through the thin atmosphere and landed hard, sliding across dust and rock before coming to a stop. For a moment, everything was silent except for their breathing. Nathan let out a long breath and smiled. "We made it." Alira laughed and clapped her hands. "We're alive," she said happily. Lysira laughed softly too, tears forming in her eyes. It had been so long since she had heard laughter that sounded free. They stepped out of the shuttle into the calm night of the small moon. The sky above shimmered with 1,000 stars. Lysira looked up, her silver hair glowing faintly under the starlight. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Nathan stood beside her. "Worth the trouble, isn't it?" She nodded, still staring at the sky. "When I lived in the palace, I looked at the stars and felt powerful. But now I look at them and feel small, and I think that's better." Nathan smiled at that. "Sometimes small is where real strength hides." They set up a temporary camp near the shuttle. Nathan placed a small antenna on a rock and began sending coded distress signals. He used old Galactic Union frequencies, hoping someone would catch them. Lysera helped him align the transmitter while Alira gathered small, shiny stones nearby, giggling each time she found one. Hours passed. The cold began to creep in again. Nathan sat near the small heater, checking the transmitter readings. Lysera sat opposite him, quiet. The gentle hum of the machine filled the silence between them. Finally, Lysera spoke. "Nathan, when they find us, if they do, you must not come with us," he looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "My people will not forgive what I've done," she said softly. "If they find me, they will see you as a threat, as a human who helped a traitor. They will not show mercy." Nathan frowned. "Then we'll go somewhere else. We'll find a colony that doesn't care who you are." She shook her head slowly. "It's not that simple. My mother will not stop until she finds me. I cannot risk you or your world." Nathan leaned forward. "You think I helped you just to watch you disappear again?" Her voice trembled. "Nathan, please. You saved my daughter's life. I will never forget that, but this is my fight." He looked at her quietly for a long moment. "And if I told you it's my choice to stay?" Lysera's eyes glistened. "Then I would call you brave and foolish." They shared a faint smile, though sadness lingered in it. Later that night, while Alira slept, Nathan stepped outside the shuttle. The air was thin but still breathable. He looked at the stars again, thinking of Earth, of oceans, forests, and sunlight. He had left it long ago in search of something meaningful. Maybe this was it. Maybe meaning wasn't in missions or paychecks, but in the quiet act of helping someone who needed it most. Lysera joined him outside, wrapping a thin blanket around her shoulders. "You should rest," she said softly. "I will," he replied, "after I make sure the signal's steady." She stood beside him, silent for a moment. Then she said, "When we are gone, what will you do?" He thought for a while before answering. "Keep fixing broken things, I guess." Lysera smiled faintly. "Then I hope you never stop. The universe needs people like you." They both looked at the stars. The silence between them was full, not empty. A faint beep came from the shuttle, breaking the moment. Nathan ran inside and checked the monitor. "Someone's responding," he said. "It's weak, but it's there." Lysera's eyes widened.
"Who is it?"
"Union frequency," he said. "Human, they're about 3 days away." Relief flooded her face. "Then it's over," she whispered. "We're going home." Nathan nodded slowly, but his smile faded a little. "Home for you," he said. She looked at him sadly. "You'll always have a home in our hearts, Nathan." He didn't answer. He just smiled, though his chest felt heavy. When the rescue ship finally arrived 3 days later, Lysera and Alira stood near the shuttle ramp. The human vessel hovered gently over the moon's surface, its bright lights cutting through the dust. Nathan helped them pack what little they had. Alira hugged him tightly. "Will we see you again?" she asked with teary eyes. Nathan knelt and brushed her hair softly. "Maybe not soon," he said. "But remember, humans always find a way." Lysera stepped forward. "Nathan," she began, but her voice broke. He nodded, understanding what she couldn't say. "Go," he said quietly. "You've got a second chance. Don't waste it." She looked at him for a long moment, then reached into her cloak and pressed a small pendant into his hand. "So you don't forget us," he opened his palm. The pendant glowed faintly with Kellen symbols. "I won't," he said. As Lysera and her daughter boarded the rescue craft, Nathan stood alone by the shuttle. The engines roared softly, and then the ship lifted into the sky. He watched until it vanished among the stars. Days later, back in his shelter, Nathan repaired an old communication unit. As he worked, a new signal blinked on his screen, a message encoded in Selen script. He opened it, and a soft light filled the room. The message read, "For the human who taught a princess how to be human." Nathan smiled, leaning back in his chair. Outside his window, the stars shone brighter than ever. Somewhere out there, 2 lives he had saved were safe, and that was enough. He looked up at the endless sky and whispered, "Goodbye, Lysera. Take care of her." The wind outside carried the sound away, but in his heart it stayed warm, eternal, and human.